about a year ago, Apple opened the floodgates and finally allowed emulators on the App Store. That means you can play your retro games on your phone, no jailbreak required. This was a major step forward for emulation. Pretty much instantly, we got the Delta emulator officially on the App Store, which allows you to play all the hits, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, and even N64 games on your iPhone. And the emulation quality is pretty fantastic. I have a video on that from a year ago that goes into more detail on Delta specifically. But there have been some updates. I wanted to give iPhone emulation a try again because there are some more options now. There's Folium that allows you to play 3DS games. Kinda. Also, multiplayer across devices has been added to Afterplay. Imagine you're with your bros waiting in line at the movies or something, and you fire up Super Mario Kart to pass the time. You can even now get the AltStore fairly easily, even here in the States. There are some limitations though. Apple still has a lot of restrictions on their developers. These devices are insanely powerful now. I'm using an iPhone 15 Pro Max. I can play Resident Evil 8 on this thing, but I can't play Kirby Planet Robobot at full frame rate. We'll get into all of this.
Is the audio distorted or is it just me? Welcome to the wonderful world of emulation.
In terms of controllers, not much has changed in the past year. There's this Scuff Nomad controller that I got recently. It's pretty cool because you don't need to take the case off of your phone when you're using it. In a past video, I talked about the MCon controller. That's been kickstarted and funded to 65 times its initial goal. So that'll be cool to check out once it's released. I think in that video, I also highlighted the Razer Kishi Pro. That controller's cool, but it's just way too big. It's a cool controller, but if I'm gonna be taking all this stuff with me, I might as well just pack an actual console. Why would I? Oh. Hold on a second. Hello? Hey, man! Hey, what can I do for you? I just want to see what you're up to. What are you doing? Nothing. I'm in the middle of filming something. Cool, so you're not doing anything important. Did you know Starbucks has a new cortado? It's like what you would expect from Starbucks. I have to go. Wait! Did you tell them this video is sponsored by Satisfye? Satisfye? Yes. Why would Satisfye be sponsoring? Well, because they have a new Zen Grip coming out for the Nintendo Switch 2 that'll be ready in time for its launch. Yes. Yes. That's why. Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. Yes. Yep. Yeah. Yes. All right. So thanks for calling. Satisfye's Zen Grip is already the best way to have an ergonomic grip for your Nintendo Switch, and they'll be ready to go with the Zen Grip 2 when the Switch 2 comes out. Look at all these renders. Wow. Oh my god. The Switch 2 will be bigger, but it will not be more ergonomic. Long play sessions can be rough. This will be perfectly ergonomic with its hand grips and its asymmetrical design that corrects your hand placement. It will also be dockable. No need to take the grip off. It allows the kickstand to swing free. The Zen Grip 2 will be ready in time for the Switch 2 launch, so pre-order now to have yours in time. Click the link below and use code Wulff then to get 10% off of all Zen Grip 2 pre-orders. Hey, wait a second. Were you just showing me new Switch 2 renders? The Cortado's okay. It's like what you'd expect. Where'd you get those renders? Anyway, in this video, you might see me mess with the 8BitDo 02. This is a nice little tiny controller that you can fit right in your pocket or your mouth. Doesn't taste good. I like this one in particular because it supports X input mode. The 8BitDo Lite and 8BitDo Micro would be my go-to option, but they do not support X input mode. For iOS, you would have to put them in Nintendo Switch mode, which can still work in some of these emulators, but not all of them. My start button gets weird on the 8BitDo Lite. X input mode is more universal. The best iPhone emulator is probably still Delta. I'm not going to go heavily into it in this video because not much has changed in the past year since my last video that I did on Delta. It strikes the perfect balance between easy to use and widest support of most consoles. It's like a Swiss Army knife. I do wish it was a little easier to get your ROMs on here, but that's mostly the fault of iOS and its terrible file system. Afterplay is another emulator that I've used on the iPhone, and it was out even before Apple allowed emulators on the App Store. I have a whole video on this too. They circumvented Apple's anti-emulator policy by allowing you to run the emulator through the web browser. but it didn't stream your games. It cached them and played them locally on your device. It's pretty amazing what it does. Now, these days, there isn't really much of a need for that circumvention since Delta is on the App Store and does kind of the same thing. But Afterplay has other benefits, like you can also play your ROM library on your computer and any other device with a web browser, and you can pick up where you left off. Your save files are the same. So that's cool to have all your stuff across devices like that. It also just makes managing your files a bit easier. This way, you don't have to mess with the iPhone's file system. They recently added clock manipulation, which could help for cheesing Pokemon games. But the biggest update is multiplayer. You can simply just start up a game and share a link with a friend. They click on that link and boom, they are just on your console, just like it's couch co-op, just like they're right next to you. They don't even need a copy of the game to do this. It's basically just remote play, so there will be a little bit of lag, depending on where they are in the world. I gave the link out to my chat, and Salty Mentos over here managed to play pretty well in Mario Kart. Either the input lag was not so bad, or I'm just that bad at Mario Kart. He said it was hit or miss. Sometimes it was fine, sometimes it would hit some lag spikes. But he was all the way up in upstate New York, and I'm on Long Island. That's probably like 100 miles away.
If you're right next to the person, if you're on the same Wi-Fi, the lag is not bad. I did not notice it at all.
Who's winning, me?
We're both in list.
Okay.
With this thumbstick, I can't. This would probably be better for a game like Kirby's Dream Course, or something where real-time inputs aren't as important. I found that SNES games worked best with this multiplayer feature, mostly because most of the good multiplayer games are SNES games. There is also a link cable feature, which is different than multiplayer. Multiplayer has you remote into the other person's console so that you are the player too. Link cable has your virtual Game Boy connect to somebody else's virtual Game Boy. So you will both need a copy of the game. But this should allow you to, say, trade Pokemon or play Tetris together. Theoretically, I could not for the life of me get this to work. This is only available for Game Boy and Game Boy Color as of right now, but they are working on Game Boy Advance support, and that should be out any minute now, which is great because you have all those great Pokemon games, those Pokemon ROM hacks, and also Zelda 4 Swords. That game is sick with multiplayer. Having that on Nintendo Switch Online kind of blew my mind because it's a cool feature of a retro game that nobody was ever really able to use to its full potential. How often did you have kids on the schoolyard back in the day, all with their own Game Boy Advances, all with their own copy of Zelda Link to the Past, and a 4-way link cable? It just didn't happen. Now, with Nintendo Switch Online or Afterplay, it's a lot more practical to experience that. The other downside to Afterplay is that there is a subscription to it. You can play Game Boy Advance and Super Nintendo and anything below that for free, but link cable and multiplayer support, as well as systems up to DS and N64, are going to be at least in the premium tier subscription, which is $5.99 a month. Only the person who starts the multiplayer session needs to have the premium subscription. The other person doesn't need to have it. And also, they kind of store your ROMs on their cloud service. So toss them a couple bucks, why don't you? So we've been doing a lot of retro stuff. On Android, you can emulate all the way up to PS2 and GameCube. So we got to kick it up a notch. Folium allows you to straight up do 3DS emulation. It's very similar to Delta, but only does 3DS emulation. That's it. Now, this is pretty much as far as you're going to get on your iPhone, and it doesn't emulate 3DS games all that well either. As powerful as iPhones are, they are not capable of emulating heavy, big, power-intensive games. They could be, but Apple purposely nerfs them. They restrict the use of JIT, or just-in-time compilation. This is basically a real-time translation layer. It's what allows an emulator to very quickly emulate old architecture. The iPhone is powerful enough to brute force really old architecture, but not powerful enough to do it for newer 3D stuff. Apple could easily allow this. Instead, you have to do some tomfoolery, like jailbreak your phone or sideload the AltStore or some other bullshit to enable JIT. That ends up being so complex, it's essentially just jailbreaking. And it also doesn't work. I got this error. So did everyone since March of last year. So we're staying away from JIT for now, at least until it gets easier. Without JIT, you can still get away with some 3DS games, basically none of the 3D ones. I was playing Azure Striker Gunvolt pretty flawlessly, maybe a slight hiccup here or there, but this runs great. You would never know that the iPhone is running overtime to try to get this game emulated in time for the pixels to hit your eyeballs. But a game like Kirby Planet Robobot runs like ass in the menus and doesn't even load into a level. Same with New Super Mario Bros. 2.
Pokemon Sun almost seems like it's gonna work. It's got some chugging, but it's working better than any of the other games that just crash instantly. But it doesn't last forever. It crashes right there every time. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten any of these games to work except for Azure Striker Gunvolt. This would be good if I could see where any of the bad guys are. Samus Returns also seems like it was going good. Whoop. Oh, this was going so good for a little bit. And it does not want to import some of my other 2D games like Shovel Knight. It doesn't want to put it there. It looks like there is some multiplayer in Folium. I'm assuming these are people who have their phones jailbroken and they have JIT enabled and stuff. But this could be really cool. You can just straight up play Smash with some of these people right from your phone. That's pretty cool.
Folium is a pretty cool emulator. It's $5 on the App Store, but it's worth it if you're aware of the limitations and are comfortable only playing low-spec 3DS games. There is an AltStore version of Folium, which is free. So if you don't want to pay the $5 and you have a Mac OS computer to run Alt Server on, you can get the file on that and fling it over to AltStore on your iPhone. This is only necessary here in the States. In the UK, it's probably a lot easier to sideload your apps, and you'd probably end up with much better emulators over there. The instructions to set up AltStore are very simple. I'm not going to walk you through all of them. Just remember to hold Option on this menu item, which is not communicated well in any tutorial. If your iPhone does not show up in Alt Server, you may need to restart both of your devices, which is something I needed to do pretty much every time I wanted to use the AltStore. But that's the easy part, and an easy way to get Folium for free. But just pay the devs the $5. The hard part is enabling JIT. There's a button to do it, but it does not fucking work. You need some developer tools, like a developer account and Xcode. You need to copy some bullshit into terminal and let that run for 30 minutes. And even after all of that, it still won't work because it's been broken since last March, which is a huge shame because that'll lock us out of some other emulators. Dolphin and Flycast have been on iOS for a really long time now. And I've tried Dolphin even before emulators were allowed on the App Store. And without JIT, it just runs like ass.
Oh, wait. Nope.
Flycast is a Dreamcast emulator, and that just straight up crashes every time I try to run a game. Lastly, we have Pomelo, which is a Nintendo Switch emulator. This is only available via sideloading, and it also straight up doesn't function at all without JIT. Not even Sonic Mania will run on here. So if you want to play retro games on the iPhone, you'd still probably have a really good time with like Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, even DS games, and Delta is probably the best way to go about that. There have been so many times where I'm caught without a controller, and I've popped open Delta for a quick game of Mario RPG, or Rhythm Heaven or something. There is RetroArch on the iPhone now, but fuck all that, Delta just works. Afterplay is a great one to mess around with if you want to try multiplayer and bring your friends into the game with you. Multiplayer between iPhones is something that I used to dream about all the time. There are like not a lot of multiplayer iPhone games. There are a lot of multiplayer retro games. 3DS is not so hard to get going if all you want to do is play low-powered games. Anything else? Absolutely f*** it. If you're not willing to jailbreak your iPhone, you're not going to be willing to enable JIT either. As cool as emulation can be on the iPhone, there are some limitations, and we've found them. It's 3DS as of right now. So what do you guys think about emulating on your iPhone? What have you been playing on there? Or have you been holding off because you were afraid of doing all this tomfoolery? don't be afraid. There are some easy ways to get retro games on your phone, and it's something you should try doing. I'm just warning you where the headache starts, and it's 3DS. Leave it in the comments below. Add me on Twitter and any and all this other social media garbage. I live stream here on YouTube sometimes. That's where we ended up playing some of these multiplayer emulators together. Make sure you're subscribed, but also you make sure you turn on all notifications so you get notified of the live streams. And of course, share this video with a friend that you want to play Mario Kart with. And say, you know what? Don't share this video even. Just share them a link, and then you can just start playing. Have a good week.
Press the A button, and then you're gonna, and then get the meter.
Wait, right on the right.
Yeah.
I thought it was the green thing.
There you go. Ooh.
Fuck.